I told a parent, your son has been bullying another boy, and I couldn't have said a more horrific word to them. It was such an attack. They were so defensive.
If I'm pushing you off the swing because I want the swing, then that's something we can solve educationally by creating a schedule, a rotation, by teaching about sharing and turn taking. If I'm pushing you off the swing because I want to see you cry, you could make a million rotations and swings. I'm still going to do it.
Trump is a public bully, essentially. I mean, that was his style. Thank God that we have great appreciation for him. However, the bullying part and the style, I think any sensitive Orthodox Jew recognizes, Zelo Aderech Shalanu, this is not our way.
Welcome to the Learning Curve podcast, brought to you by Mishpacha magazine.
We are raising children in a changing and challenging world.
So let's tackle the important issues facing from families today.
I am Rabbi Yerchmiel Garfield, Menal of Yeshiva Teres Emes in Houston, and I love talking about chinuch.
I am Rabbi Ari Schoenfeld, Menahel Yeshiva Katana of Manhattan, Beis Tipra of Manhattan, and director of Camp Aish. I also love talking chinuch and sometimes fishing.
Join us as we answer your questions and discuss the topics that matter to parents the most.
Bruchim Abayim, and welcome back to another episode of The Learning Curve, a podcast where we discuss chinuch matters that matter. And that's my byline. I don't know if that will
It's
stick.
a good one. I like it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Rabbi Garfield, how are you?
Good day. Good day. Hope you are well, Rabbi Schoenfeld. It's great to be back. And as I say at the beginning of a lot of these podcasts, it's a fun part of my day, talking to you and thinking about chinuch and having great guests. It's great to be here.
Yes, I know the Gemara Makkah says, right, that you learn so much for your Talmidim. There's no Gemara that says Umi podcasts Yosef Mikula, but definitely it makes me think about things more, ponder things more, especially when I know I have to debate you on them. But we don't debate. We discuss.
Discuss. Well said. Well said.
So here we go. As the format is, right, it's two shorter questions and then a larger one with a guest. So the first question,
I'm going to ask you.
You're going to ask me.
Yeah.
All right, Rabbi, take it away.
Okay. Now, this question, I'm looking at it now. It's funny. When I first became a principal like 14 years ago, I remember giving my father, we were talking about it, and I was like, oh, this is the question that has no answer. This is the one that's going to get me. So it's funny that that's the one that came up all these
Maybe
years.
I should ask it to you.
Yeah.
So then
No, I'd like to hear what you have to say. Okay, here we go. Do either of your schools have any sort of candy policy? I do not want to sound like that parent, but every other day, my 5th grade son and 3rd grade daughter come home having eaten more candy than Purim day. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. And there's always a good reason. A birthday party, a CM, a class prize. Is there anyone who thinks that sugaring them up is healthy or helping it for a learning environment? Can we not come up with another way to incentivize our children?
So I would have a much less opinion if I hadn't been asked this question by some parents in my yeshiva. Every yeshiva has those parents, right? That are nutritionists,
they bring
or
the
on those
raisins for the
dentists,
CM.
a red dye, and maybe now with the new health person running a health department, in the nicest America, maybe that would change. Well, I don't know. I'm going to shock you with this following sentence, right? You sometimes make fun of me for being too passionate about many things. I'm not so passionate about this question. Yeah. The answer is yeah. Are there other ways to incentivize children? Yes. In our yeshiva, Gedolim cards is very popular from 1st grade through 5th or maybe even 6th. The answer is yes. And I don't think we have, we walk around giving out candy every day. Candy really works as just a sign of affirmation and a sign of job well done. Yes. Do we have to limit it? I find the following, that for 80% of our students, this is a non-issue. Meaning candy is great, and the candy, and it's,
doesn't negatively impact their education.
Doesn't really negatively impact them, whether even health-wise doesn't bother them, weight-wise it doesn't bother them. There is a 20%, 20, 50, whatever the number is, of either kids where they just react to sugar, they become gremlins when they have sugar, or they struggle with, whether it's weight or health, and sugar really wrecks them. And those are the parents that usually reach out and say, my son becomes a devil when you give them sugar. And my English principal goes crazy when the Rebbe at 1:25, "Oh, you did great today, boys. Here's a lolly." And then all of a sudden he leaves, runs out the door, and now the English teacher has to deal with, the Mountain Dew kids. So yes, I think as you have to kind of watch it and make sure it's not abused. I think by and large, it's not a huge struggle. I can speak only from my 3 yeshivas or 4 yeshivas that I've worked in. Yeah, carrots don't work as well as lollies. I just hate to break it to you. The Mishnah Balpek is not gonna work with carrots. You have to not abuse it. And for those kids that are sensitive, yes, so you have to come up with the organic Trader Joe lollipops that don't have, processed sugar. And you have to be sensitive to the kids and the families that are more caring. Maybe I'm too blah as a principal. I don't know. Is that like
Yeah, I
a
hear you.
blah
No,
answer?
I hear what you're saying, and I do think like many things, it's about balance. And a lot of times, parents who double down on their kids and prevent them from all sugar, when they have access to it,
That
they
is right.
go crazy. And we all know those kids, from the kids who come to my house. I have kids who come to my house, and it's like, woo, they attack the cabinets there, and it's like maybe that kind of isn't really working. But we did do something interesting in school, and I'll just share it. We one time, this is a few years ago, a parent was concerned about this, and I wasn't really sure, what exactly, how much candy, this in the question. There's certainly a description of a certain amount of candy. So I did like a 1 week candy audit. And I said to the teachers, we're not judging. I'm not like, this isn't, I just want to know what happens. Every time you give out candy, mark it down, and let me know at the end of the week. And like, there was one teacher that maybe had a little more, but, you know, whatever. And we actually made a rule that you can only have like one party. We came up with some like gather.
Right. Right. Do you have school-wide programs that have candy? Like, we don't really give out when we have a
No,
school-wide initiatives, they're usually
no,
prizes or
yeah.
or trips. They're not candy. Maybe
I mean, we have a Rosh Chodesh treat sometimes, like
yeah, we
we'll
give out
do some,
donuts.
yeah, something like that.
I'll speak to the rebbeim once in a while if it's getting out of hand, and, you know,
Right. I think it's about
what can I say?
balance.
I don't think it's out of hand.
Anyone who knows me will feel I was being disingenuous if I don't say that I have had on my desk, and my table in my office, a jar of Jelly Bellies forever.
Oh my.
Any kid who
Oh
comes to my
my.
office gets 1 or 2 Jelly Bellies. 2, 3? Maybe 3. It's a very controlled substance. But, I think that it sets a tone, it creates a chain. Listen, we have this idea where an upsharon where the kid has the letter with the honey. This is a minhag in Klal Yisrael. Honey, I don't know if it's processed sugar, but it's certainly caloric. And so the idea of giving a little honey is not a new thing. The Jelly Belly is a
How about
modern
the
honey.
challenge of don't eat your feelings? If a kid is not feeling well and you give him something, the kid is sad, so you give
Yeah,
him
yeah. If
right?
I gave him a sub, a double pastrami sub, and I said, go in the corner, yeah, I would hear that. But I think 2
Right.
Jelly Bellies is not, it's not.
Are they
An
the every flavor Jelly Belly? Are they like or are they the
Yeah,
the
it's a
the tame
multi-flavor.
one?
I just refill it. Basically, it's really interesting. Like 8 or 9 years ago, I got as a gift from a vendor a little jar of Jelly Bellies. I put it on my desk because what am I gonna do with it? And like I
Right.
saw the impact it had on adults and children, and like so I just refill it from
A
Costco.
Rebbe also gets if a Rebbe comes and he gets
Anyone
a Jelly
anyone
Belly?
who comes to my office, you could have
Wow.
Rivari, you come to Houston, you could even have 4. You could even have 4.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's just a small thing I do, but, it's an example of like about I think an appropriate balance, but I understand some parents find that balance to be, indulgent. And so, we try to be respectful, but we can't stop the whole operation for that,
Right.
obviously.
All right, next. Let's see if you can hit us harder on this one. Dear TLC, my 6th grade daughter is an awesome kid. She is popular in school, works hard, and is well liked by her teachers, and yet she is miserable. Why? One word, and then in big, bold letters, homework.
Bum, bum, bum,
And
bum.
yeah, endless amounts. We should really have Rabbi Bender on for this one. Endless amounts. Now that she is in middle school, she has more teachers, which just means more homework. I don't understand. She is in school for almost 10 hours a day. Is that not enough? Why does she have to come home every night overwhelmed with work? Can you help make school nights great again? Wow,
Okay.
nice writer,
Well,
but
let
yes.
let me say this. Let me say this. Largely, I agree. I think that the educational research, so let's just like call a spade a spade. Do the research yourself, okay? Parents, Google it, look into it. It is very divided on the efficacy of homework, and it's not so push it that most of the homework that we're giving is really impacting the student achievement. Now, there are other reasons to give homework. One other reason is the kids need to keep busy at night. Another reason is parents otherwise don't know what we're doing in school. So it makes the connection between home and school valid, but not enough of a validation to cause suffering. So I would
Suffering.
agree
Yeah.
that that's something to be looked at. I think
So
homework
you
should be,
don't have homework in your school, that means, if you agree, right?
we have homework, but it's not heavy. We're not heavy on homework, meaning
Do you have a
certain,
policy? Do you have rules? Are the teachers limited? Or
we don't have an across the board policy. But it's like any leadership thing, it's about what you focus on, what you reinforce. I think in the younger grades where they're, like, learning new skills like math, they review Gemara, we ask them to read it over and call in a number.
right.
Like, it's not like we're not doing any homework, but I don't
And
think
middle
it's like,
school, the middle school girls, because I have a middle school daughter who it became like a social currency almost. Like she gets together every night with her friends to do homework, and then they're there for 3 hours and they don't even finish their homework. So I'm not sure what they're doing. But do you
I don't
have?
know. No, we don't. I have a daughter who's in middle school. I don't think I've ever seen her do homework, but that might be more
We are
Garfield
outing. We are outing our children on this one. Yeah.
that might be more of a
Oh boy.
Garfield gene, issue because I don't think I
Yeah.
ever did homework either, to be honest, but, yeah, I don't think homework isn't a big deal here. Again, we give it, sometimes a writing assignment or reading a novel or, there are things that have to be done at home, so we definitely don't have a policy against homework.
So I want to share a story that happened this year. I actually think I shared that email on our Menahels chat group, email group, and that is that our third grade Rebbe, Rabbi Berman, an amazing Rebbe, decided mid-year, toward the beginning of the year, to cancel homework for the rest of the year. And he wrote a long letter to the parents explaining that, of course, we'll have Chazara over Shabbos, and we're still going to have tests. But he found more harm than good. It was just making kids anxious. He's like, I think the learning wonderful. If there's a specific kid that has specific needs, I'll reach out to you at night. You know, speak to your kid at night, parent them to find out what they're doing. And that was his letter to the parents. And he got back 95% of the parents wanted to, give him bouquets of flowers. The emails and that he got from the parents in response, it was as if he, you know, I don't know what, cured some disease. It was an overwhelming emotional response of thank you, thank you, thank you. It was 95%. There were a couple of parents that were very upset.
What was the reason that they were very upset?
What kind of generation are we raising? What does that mean? Let the kids work. They have to review, and if they don't review, how am I supposed to know what they're learning? And the kids come home and for 3 hours are just playing games. So one of the parents actually called me. I don't know if they're a podcast listener, but I'm not going to say the name. Obviously, but and I told them, I said, first of all, I hate to break it to you, but you're like the only parent with this opinion, so it's not going to really help. Just to show, he ran it by me first before he canceled homework when I let him. And I said, secondly, I am sure that Rabbi Berman, if you would like your son to work hard at night, will give you an individualized homework,
Great.
for the next few months. Like this is not, and if your son you think is really bright or is ready, you can give him other things to learn. By and large, I agree with this parent, Rabbi Bender. The reason why I mentioned his name before in Darche, very strong anti-homework belief. It's one of Rabbi Bender's big things. Except
I have
that
a
not
feeling he
everyone
didn't do homework as a kid either. I'm just putting it out there. This
could be.
little feeling. Continue.
Could be. I think Matiseo Salman is also, right, by and large, against homework. But the Rebbeim in Darche have told me that, yeah, it's the official school policy, but the Rebbeim do what they want in terms of giving out homework.
So have you changed your policy? Have you taken the lead of this Rebbe and implemented across the board?
So I mentioned it at the Rebbe meeting recently that I would like
Mhm.
to. There's the Rebbe and the English program. I'll speak about both, the English department. So the Rebbeim, the older Rebbeim, protested very strong. And I agreed with him because I said to the 6th, 7th, 8th grade Rebbeim, I don't mean to be a lamdim, but I don't consider that homework. I consider that chazara.
Right.
And it's a skill you want to teach, almost a life skill for limud Gemara is you learn a Gemara, you chaza the Gemara, and you
Right.
review the Gemara. I think that's different than just math questions and spelling words and things of that nature. The English department. So one of the complaints against the English department will be, why can't they do the homework the last 10 minutes of class? Why does it have to be at home? And the answer is that we are, Baruch Hashem, not a public school, and therefore we have a very finite and limited amount of English. So the teachers and the general studies department complains, we don't have enough time to teach. You want us to cut out of our time also to give homework? We just don't have enough time in the day. I think it's a very valid complaint. very valid. And, you know, I don't believe, and in general, in legislating things out. No homework in our school. I like to work with my staff and my teachers. And if a teacher's giving too much homework, I'll try to tell them, please limit it to 10 minutes. I don't think my yeshiva has a huge homework issue by and large. Not every middle school kid will agree with me. And I'll tell kids to just don't do the homework.
I hear. I mean, I just going back to the question, I would give advice to this parent to talk to the school directly,
Yep.
respectfully and calmly and say, listen, for my daughter, don't go after the whole thing. Don't, say homework is bad. This is crazy. Just say, I don't know what you do for other kids, and that's between them and their parents or whatever. But for my child, could we come up with an agreement in which she does less, she does half? And most schools, I would hope be responsive to that, or you got a bigger problem, I
Right.
think, honestly. So,
Wonderful. And now, Rabbi Garfield, we move on to the spotlight issue of the week, one that we hope to spend some time on. We have a very special guest this week that will join us soon. And here's the question. Dear TLC, my 4th grade son has been coming home increasingly upset because a group of kids at school has been teasing him, excluding him from activities, and sometimes even pushing him on the playground. He's starting to dread going to school, and I could see that it's affecting his confidence. He doesn't know how to respond, and as a parent, I'm struggling to know the best way to support him. I want to help him feel safe and empowered, but I also believe the school has a responsibility to step in. What specific steps should I expect the school to take when bullying like this is reported? How can I ensure that my concerns are taken seriously and that meaningful action is being taken to create a safer environment for my son? So this is the B word in chinuch, right? Bullying, a very, very large.
can't wait to ask Dr. Novak to define that one. That's going to be fun.
Yes. So before we bring on our guest, Rabbi Garfield, I guess in the experience in this world of bullying and teasing and
Well, let's just first say acknowledge the pain that bullying causes for kids and for parents. Mostly it's the parents listening to the podcast, so I don't want to not say that kids have pain. But think about it, as a parent, you send your precious child off to an environment that you can't be there for them, and you know that they're suffering significant emotional pain. And that is, I mean, we've all, a lot of parents have experienced that. That is one of the most horrific things. I remember when my son was very young, he fell and he had stitches across his forehead, and it was like we were in the emergency room and they couldn't give him anesthesia, and they had to just like stitch his forehead, and I had to hold him down, like that was my job. I mean, it was excruciatingly emotionally traumatic to put your kid in that. Know you're doing that, you know? Now, obviously, it's not the same, but sending your kid off to school when they're telling you, I'm being bullied, I'm suffering. It's like, it's not okay. Like, as a parent, it tears your heart, tears your heart. So, I want to start by saying that and acknowledge that. So that said, I think really, like many issues, it requires tremendous amount of partnership. And not that the questioner didn't acknowledge, but I think, a lot of times parents want the school to just solve it, like just stop it. And there are things the school could do, but a lot of times there are underlying issues also that are contributing, like how that child is doing himself and what he or she could learn. And, just in general, there's just like it's a partnership. I think that's something that's very important. It's hard to make generalizations, but I think that's a piece of it that needs to be. That's my response, sort of, when I heard the question.
so the word bully it's a trigger word, right? And but it's also the reason why you have to be careful is I've made this mistake a couple of times by almost assuming that the parent was telling me was that this one. Obviously we'll bring on Dr. Novak to discuss this. The difference between teasing and being maybe mean, which is dealt one way, and then bullying, which is a much larger, more dangerous scenario.
Right.
And then when
100%.
you call up the perpetrator's parents and you say, Yankel has been bullying. I did that once. I used the B word. And
As a
it was
parent?
met,
One second, were
no,
you as a
as
principal or
no,
as
as
a
a principal, as a
okay.
manahel. I told a parent, your son has been bullying another boy. And I couldn't have said a more horrific word to them. It was such an attack. They were so defensive. I'm not saying he's perfect. And he was, but bullying? Do you know what? Like, that's why I'm always nervous to use that word, there are, of course, horrific stories of bullying, and cyberbullying is sometimes more dangerous. But by and large, 90% of the time, I have found that with just a little bit of, as you said, partnership and conversation, we can at least change the tenor of the situation. To not be a bully, to just be, working on midos and working on dealing when a kid bothers you, and how to deal with a kid in your class that's annoying. But parents do not appreciate their son or daughter being called a bully, and it's like a to me, it's like a word I try to avoid using because it never is received well.
But yeah, I'm not sure I would endorse that because, I think when you give language to things, if you have a definition, it's empowering to the people involved to say, we are dealing with something and it's not just teasing. True, there is a definition. If it's a one-off tease, I wouldn't call it bullying. Bullying is an ongoing power
I know
differential.
there's bullying. I'm not saying there isn't bullying.
So
I'm
why not
saying
call it a
unless
state?
because it's very rare that it is a clear spade. There are bullies that will, for 3 months. I'm not right. There are cases where the kid is such a horrific bully that you have to deal with it like a crisis. To me, bullying is a crisis as opposed to just a kid being mean.
I mean, listen, I don't think you should use the word bullying if it's not bullying. However,
Right.
if it
Yes.
is
Yes.
bullying, unless you're dealing with parents who are like off the rocker when you can't say anything, that's different. But
Right.
generally, I think it's healthy. I would say, I wonder what the statistics are about this. And I don't know if Dr. Novik will have this on the top of her head, but I imagine the kids who bully and get bullied, it's chronic. Like you could see it in kindergarten, first grade, second grade. It's not like all of a sudden in sixth grade. It's a personality type, it's a condition. And in our schools, and especially out of town where I am, where the kids are with each other Shabbos, 7 days a week for years. They could be together for 12. In our school, in our system, they could be together for 16 years,
Right.
from the 2 to 18. And so it's something that really requires, consideration and intervention. And it's definitely a big topic, you know?
Speaking of, you mentioned Dr. Novik. Why did you mention Dr. Novik? Who is she, and is she coming on today?
Oh, yes. We're very excited to have her. Let us welcome on Dr. Rona Novik. Dr. Novik, welcome to the Learning Curve.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, we have a lot to ask you about, but I'll start by sharing with our listening audience a little about you. For those who don't know, I've known you and your work for a long time, so it's so great to have you here. Dr. Rona Novik is a licensed clinical psychologist and the Dean Emeritus of the Azrieli Graduate School of Jewish Education and Administration of Yeshiva University. She also serves as the co-educational director of a fabulous organization, that's my addition, called the Hidden Sparks Program, which provides professional development to day schools and yeshivas. So, Dean Emeritus, does that mean that you're drinking pina coladas all day?
No, it means that I retired from one job and now have just 12 others. Um,
My grandfather, Rabbi Fabian Schoenfeld, Zechron Livracha, was a Rav for 60 years, and then he became the Rabbi Emeritus. And he said the only difference between a rabbi and a Rabbi Emeritus is that a Rabbi Emeritus doesn't get paid. That's
Correct.
how he defined the
That
difference.
is that is correct. No, I'm freed up from some of the administration, and I'm not teaching at the moment, so it allows me to pursue other
Oh, but
things.
you're still affiliated and you still are on the YU team?
Yes,
Good,
yes,
good,
I will
good.
always be proud of that affiliation.
Yes,
Yes,
good. I'm happy to hear that. All right. So, with regard to bullying, this goes back a number of years. I was in Atlanta and I brought you to the Atlanta Torah Day School, the Torah Day School of Atlanta, when you were launching. We were like the second cohort to do Brave, and I was the school counselor. And so, our relationship around bullying goes back. We're talking over 20 years, maybe. You probably know better than me when you started Brave.
probably about that long. Yeah.
So, luckily, neither of us have aged. So, that's good. We could say that. But yet, I don't think Brave has solved bullying fully because they're still talking about it, right?
What's
So
brave? You just said brave is
Brave was the name of an intervention program that I initially developed when I was at Long Island Jewish Medical Center, brought over to Yeshiva University, and had a research project doing it with over a period of about 5 years, about, I would say a dozen schools we brought the program to. And the very important thing you said, Rabbi, is that bullying is still around. Well, what I would say is the Rolls-Royce programs of bully prevention are still achieving only at best about a 30% reduction in bullying. And it's really important for parents to know this. I heard the question that Rabbi Schoenfeld read at the outset of this segment. And, parents want it gone. We all want it gone. But we don't yet have the polio vaccine for bullying. We don't I don't think we should stop trying. I think we have to keep trying to get to a point where there's zero incidence rate. I don't know that that's possible given human nature, but we should keep trying. But we're not anywhere near that. And parents and schools need to know they're never going to get to a zero level.
I have a funny question before we haven't defined maybe what bullying is yet and got into it, but is there any data that shows that maybe in the Orthodox world, maybe as you said, because there's a lot of similarities in the classroom and we're together and we're much more, it's important to us, the social dynamic of our life, that there's less bullying?
We actually found in our research numbers very similar to national
Wow.
averages. Let's define what bullying is first,
Good.
because
Good.
part of the problem is that everybody now calls everything bullying. He didn't give me the green lollipop I wanted. In nursery school, he's a bully. He would only give me the red one. She didn't invite me to her slumber party, even though she's only allowed to have 3 girls. I wasn't one of the 3. She's bullying me. Those may or may not be instances of bullying. Bullying requires several ingredients. It's the deliberate abuse of power to cause harm. You need those 3 ingredients. It's deliberate, it's an abuse of power, and it causes harm. Some people argue that it needs to be repeated over time. And it needs to be kind of, as you use the word, chronic. It needs to be ongoing. I've seen incidences that are pretty heinous and they happen once, and I'm perfectly comfortable calling it bullying because it's very clearly deliberate and it's very clearly an abuse of power, and its intent was to cause harm. My classic example is if you're on the playground and there are 3 open swings, but you go to the person swinging on the one swing in use and you say, "That's my swing. I didn't give you permission. Get off." That's bullying. But if all the swings are full and you go to someone in your favorite swing and say, "I want to turn, get off," that's bad behavior. It's aggression, but it's what's called instrumental aggression. I'm being mean and nasty to get something I want, not to hurt you. The fact that you're harmed is an indirect effect. It's not my goal. My goal is to get the swing.
Bullying needs havana, meaning the intent is what
The
is
intent
a
is to
key
harm.
component.
Correct. Kids will be mean and nasty to get something they want or need. We need to work on that as a midah. That's not good behavior. But all of us are born selfish and self-centered. Every infant cries when they're hungry. They don't think, "Mom could use a break. I'll chill for a while." We outgrow that, hopefully, as we age, and we're able to restrain our needs and not be nasty and mean just to get something we want, recognizing that other people have rights also. So we have to make a distinction between the typical developmental nastiness, instrumental aggression of children, which is annoying and a behavior we need to change, but it's normative, versus the MO of bullying, the way bullying looks, which is, I'm the most powerful person at the moment. I'm the one with the baseball. I decide who plays. And I'm going to pick only the kids I like to play. And I'm going to use my power to deliberately ostracize someone. Or I'm the best speller in the class, and I'm going to refuse to share my notes or to help someone in the class who I don't like. It's not bullying if you invite 3 girls to your slumber party, but it is bullying if you walk around all Friday in school talking about which 3 girls you're inviting.
Why does the language matter? In other words, what's the difference? Mean is mean and it hurts, it hurts.
Okay, the language matters because if I'm pushing you off the swing because I want the swing, then that's something we can solve educationally by creating a schedule, a rotation, by teaching about sharing and turn taking. If I'm pushing you off the swing because I want to see you cry, you could make a million rotations and swings. I'm still going to do it.
And therefore,
And therefore,
it needs a different approach.
it needs a different approach. And here's the other piece. Your parent who wrote your question, and I agree, Rabbi Garfield, it's heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking for parents to see this happen with their children. But what parents also need to know is that sometimes they are making demands of a school that aren't reasonable, like I want you to eliminate all bullying, which no one's ever been able to do. B, I want you to care only for my child. I don't care what happens to anyone else. Schools can't do that. But the most important C is that sometimes what parents demand will actually make the situation worse.
Wow. Can you give an example of that?
Imagine if someone went on the playground and said, "Attention, everybody. You have all been mean to Yankel here. And if you're not nice, you're going to lose every recess going forward." Is this going to help Yankel's social status in the classroom? He's now the reason our entire recess is threatened. It's only going to make things worse.
Is there a certain age and gender where we find it peaks?
Yes, 4th to 8th grade are the peak times, but I'm embarrassed to say, I'm seeing nursery school kids say, "I made a club. It's all the girls who are wearing white shirts today, and you can't be in it." I'm seeing it in preschool, and we certainly are seeing it up until high
Nursery
school.
girl or boy have the maturity to have that intent to harm?
They see it with their siblings. They see this language in almost every cartoon, TV show, book for children has social dynamics played out, and often they have a bully. And unfortunately, children sometimes witness bullies getting what they want
Right.
and getting away with their bullying. And so what they learn either from media or they learn from where their parents bully the dry cleaner when their shirt didn't come out clean, or the waiter who brings the wrong food to the table, or chas v'shalom, the principal in the day school when they don't get what they want. When children witness parents using their power to deliberately get their way, harm another person, what do children learn? So what I want to say though is that the problem is that often we think of bullying as a dyadic problem. It's two people, it's a bully and a victim. But it turns out that it's not easy to change bullies and it's not easy to change victims. And that what makes the most impact is the environment that they do their dance in. Rabbi Garfield, you talked about a school where everyone's together from kindergarten, nursery till age 18. You have both the challenge and the opportunity to create an environment where not just the victim is upset by bullying, but everyone who witnesses it is upset and therefore calls the bully on the carpet. There's nothing more effective to stop bullying than peers saying, "Cut that out, man. What that's not nice. Let him go on this swing. Let him play with us. What do you mean he's not included?" Like, much more powerful than anything administrators can do. So the question becomes, how do we raise a generation of bystanders who will not stand idly by? We say in Torah, "Al tamod al dam re'echa." We understand that we can't stand idly by. However, we're living in a world that is very comfortable standing by through anti-Semitism, through much more horrendous acts than bullying, the abuse of power to, destroy others. And so it's hard for us to expect children to behave in ways that adults aren't behaving.
The Learning Curve podcast, you probably don't know this, but we don't shy away from hard-hitting questions and serious issues. So I hope your agent
Speak for
doesn't
yourself.
stop you
Speak for yourself.
from coming back. But I'd like to ask you a sensitive question, and I'm curious what you think. You know, I remember when Trump was first elected the first time around, I had someone at my house who worked for an organization that Rabbi Schoenfeld probably knows about called the Jewish Coalition for Jewish Values or something. Torah, what's it called, Rabbi Schoenfeld?
Coalition of Jewish Values, CJV,
The Coalition of Jewish Values. What a nice name for an
rabbis, right?
organization. So I said, and really what it is,
I
it's
did
more of
not
a
think
right
that
wing.
I did not think that my father's organization was going to get a shout out on
Oh,
today's
your
podcast.
father's
But okay, continue.
organization.
Yes,
Um, and so I was so impressed that this organization, it wasn't Rabbi Schoenfeld's father, it was another person, I don't remember who it was visiting Houston. I
I
said, that's
remember.
such an impressive organization. So what do you guys promote? And they said, well, we promote right wing, basically conservative values, American conservative values, which, we certainly, I could get behind. And I said, well, Trump is a public bully, essentially. I mean, that was his style. Thank God we have great appreciation for him. We're recording at a time where Trump is supporting Israel in the most robust way. And I have great Hakaras Hatov and appreciation and recognize that that is a wonderful thing for our community.
I hope Mishpacha allows this to go through. I don't know. This is
We
not a
will find
political.
out, but
Yes.
we will go forward. However, the bullying part and the style, I think any sensitive Orthodox Jew recognizes Zelo Aderech Shalanu, this is not our way. And I said to Mr. Coalition of Jewish Values, I hope that's on the agenda while you're pushing the Jewish values about the anti-abortion or whatever other issues were on their agenda, that we're also pushing the Jewish values, not being influenced by public bully number one. And my question to you, not to opine on that specifically, Dean Emeritus Novik, but because, maybe the emeritus part will get you to be a little more open. But the question is, has having a leader such as Trump, do you think that has had impact on the standards in our community, both for adults and then for kids, about how to get things done and what's acceptable?
So I'm not a sociologist nor a student or professor of political science. But if you look at our culture at large, halvai, it should only be one leader in the world, on the world stage, and it should only be one celebrity, and it should only be it's rampant. We live in a culture that is the antithesis of Jewish values. We are, I mean, Rabbi Dr. Norman Lamb wrote, he really was prescient. He was writing in the 60s about Judaism as a counterculture movement. Torah Judaism is counterculture. And he's right. We are not universalists. We are very particular in our approach to the world. We do not see everybody as, having exactly the same approach. We know that our approach is unique and different and elevated. And I think being surrounded not by just one, but by multiple instances of bully-like, power assertive behavior, domineering approaches is not good. It is not good for children. It is really, I say to my own children who are raising children, I don't envy you. These are hard days to raise good children.
This podcast will not be about Donald Trump. It will not. That being said, the challenge, and I don't expect you to answer this, I just want to just make the point, is that when you have a celebrity or world leader that the Jewish community hasn't embraced, it's easier to tell your children that's lo zu haderech. But some of the challenges is there's definitely been an embracing of the current president of the United States, better or worse, and that he's almost like this cult-like figure. And that becomes challenging to like almost bifurcate and say, regarding this, right? Like there's this really infatuation.
It has been a challenge in Jewish history always to separate out and to raise children to understand, this great rabbi did this wonderful thing, but had flaws.
Dr. Novik, let's say there's a scenario in school where you as the administration are comfortable that it is a bullying scenario. I have yet to meet a parent of a bully who accepts that. I am yet to meet a parent who you call and you say, listen, your son Yankel has been bullying, and you're right, he's just a bully. How do you open a conversation with the perpetrator who will the parent bullying is such a scary word. It's like saying he's abusing my child to a parent, to a fourth grade parent, to an eighth grade
I
parent.
kind of see it the same as parents also don't like labels. They don't like when you say your child is slow or your child is, has attention deficit disorder, your child has anxiety. My advice to educators always is be descriptive. If you just describe behavior. Now, I do agree with Rabbi Garfield that there's a point at which you have to use the word. But if you start with the descriptive, if you say, your child went onto the playground, there were 4 empty swings, and he went to the one child swinging and pushed him off and said, my swing. I have to tell you that that kind of aggressive behavior, A, it's not acceptable in our setting. B, it's of great concern because it really does fit the definition of bullying.
And I'm the parent. So let's role play. I'm the parent. And I don't like labels, Dr. Rabbi Garfield. And therefore, I'll speak to my son when he gets home.
Rabbi, I'm labeling the behavior because it fits that category and that dimension. And the fact that your child exhibited that behavior is of great concern to us. Let's put our heads together now and let's figure out how we help your child outgrow that behavior. Because that behavior will not be acceptable or tolerated in our setting and possibly in many other Torah settings. This isn't the path of Yiddishkeit. So let's put our heads together and let's think, yes, you can have a talk with them. Halvai, again, that a talk should cure this problem. We are going to have to collaborate in a consistent and ongoing way to help your child grow in a direction that they do not use their power to harm another person. They're the biggest kid in the grade or they're the most popular, et cetera.
You mentioned that, the most effective intervention is not with the bully per se or the victim, of which there are businesses, as you know, there are full businesses focused on those things that claim that they do. But I agree with you, so we're going to leave that. But so what do we do with the bully? Meaning the program for the school, for the bystanders, as we call them back in the day, I'm sure you still do, that takes time. That's an ongoing effort. That's not responsive to the playground environment. So when you do have a playground environment and you do have a child who behaves like a bully, what have you found works? Is it suspension? Is it more supervision?
There are 2 things. 2 things. Number 1, an ounce of prevention is worth about 10 tons of cure. So ramp up. If you know you have a kid who's a problem on the playground, you have a student who gets in trouble in the bathrooms, in the hallways, then add adult supervision. And by the way, adding adults is not necessarily adding supervision because you put 3 adults on the playground and they schmooze with each other. You have to have adults who know how to scan, how to intervene. I visited a school once and I was so heartened because every adult at recess had a clipboard with every child's name who had recess. And they would walk over to a child who was alone and say, who are you playing with today? What do you want to get engaged in the basketball or in the hopscotch? Come, let's go over and see what they're doing. They would not tolerate a kid not being included.
But a bully isn't a bully. In other words, if you have a bully by recess, the playground. So if you create this environment where where you add supervision by the playground, that's not going to just cause the bully to wait until whether it's the bus or whether it's the lunchroom.
You may need to add supervision in those places. That's only one piece. One piece is add supervision, get adult eyes in the place wherever possible. The second is that there have to be some consequences. Now, the consequences send a message, but they rarely are a one shot learning where, oh, I got suspension, I'm never going to do this again. There's a concept in psychology of the behavioral economy. What does it cost me to engage in this behavior? If I get the swing but I get suspended, and when I'm suspended at home I play video games, it's a win-win. I get my swing and I get a day at home with video games. So you have to know the behavioral economy of a student. If and again, the other paradigm in bullying is do no harm. If the person I'm suspending is the captain of the basketball team, we're about to go into a tournament. I'm suspending the bully. Everybody's going to blame the victim. Every kid in the school is going to say it's Yankel's fault that our star player isn't playing in the tournament and we lost the game. So you have to be very careful about the consequences that you give, that they don't inadvertently identify and target the victim, and that they in fact have a cost, create a cost for the bully. And you may need to do them over and over and over again. I, for example, I've worked with schools where I've said, don't suspend the student. Just don't allow them to be at recess. During recess, they have schoolwork to do. That's a real cost to a student. They want to be out there. They want to be socializing. They want to be playing basketball for. So all of these, by the way, take enormous effort on the part of the school. I recognize that.
These are like treating the symptoms.
Okay, so with bullies, you have to treat the symptoms while you have someone work with a bully to develop what their core deficit is. Bullies' core deficit is empathy. They literally do not feel the pain of others in the same way. They don't resonate with it. Now, empathy is a teachable skill. We all know. I have multiple children. One of them was born an empath. The other one was so far from being empathic, but he grew into a unbelievably empathic adult and educator and a caring individual. All of them now, thank God, are empathic, caring adults. But they came from different places. You have to grow that empathy in children. We do it, by the way, very well in early childhood. In early childhood, every time we read a book, how is the cat in the hat feeling? Why is the man in the yellow hat mad at Curious George? What's going on with him? How's he feeling? Every read aloud, we ask about how the characters are feeling. How would you feel if you were Curious George and that happened to you? What would you do in that situation? We then get into first grade, we go into Rose, and we are in the, weiter, more curriculum, more content, and we forget to teach empathy.
I just want to share a story. A really, you remind me of an amazing. I don't know, amazing is the right word. So I had a day camp, Rabbi. I'm not talking about my sleepaway camp. I had a day camp in
What
Passaic,
sleepaway
and
camp?
this is our weekly routine. And our lifeguard was a boy who you grew up from, but was not currently from. A teenager who was obviously struggling. He was our lifeguard, and a seventh grader was called verbally abusing and bullying him. I shouldn't have to listen to you. Why? Because you eat on Yom Kippur and you're not Jewish, and was just in front of everyone tearing into him. And we called the kid into my office, and my partner, Rabbi Kramer, says to me, Rabbi, I got this. And he says to the kid, I want to role play with you. And he said, imagine you're a lifeguard. Remember, you got kicked out of yeshiva, and he presented the struggle of this teen. And you're that boy, and you come to an Orthodox camp, and then he started screaming at him. And the kid started crying. It was an unbelievable moment of teaching empathy, of role playing, that that is what as you said, what the bully needs.
Yes. And it's not a lesson that's necessarily learned one day, 2 days, but it is a task that and again, unfortunately, is best accomplished with a clear partnership between parents and children, but it will not be surprising to you that bullying runs in families. So who are we going to turn to teach little bully empathy if big bully at home doesn't have empathy? He or she are not necessarily the best teachers in that brand of chinuch. So it is a challenge.
That sounds like an almost insurmountable challenge.
I don't think it's insurmountable because I think it's a critical belief as a clinical psychologist and as an educator, but I also think it's a critical Jewish belief. I believe in the infinite possibility of human beings to change and grow. Ad me'av esrim, until our last breath, we are changing and growing. And I don't write off a parent, and I don't write off a child, and I don't write off a school because we have the possibility to be better tomorrow than we are today.
Well said.
So we get up every morning, we say Moda'ani, every year we get another Al Chait, we get another chance. It's in our DNA to recognize that nothing is fixed. It's all fluid, and with the strength of our conviction and with Hashem's help, people grow.
All right, we're starting to wrap up, but I did want to just talk. We talked about the bully, we talked about the bystanders. Can you give us a minute or two on the victim? If a parent of a victim is listening, like what are the things they could be doing?
Yeah. Very often, victims are sensitive souls. Because bullying is about power, I don't wanna pick on I mean, I you can't tell because 'cause I'm sitting down, but on a good day, I measure 5 feet tall, and
Mm.
I went to school in a time when things were so politically incorrect that everything was done in size order. We
Uh-huh.
sat in size order, we ate in size order, we lined up in size order. But nobody really teased me or bullied me about my size because I didn't get upset. I was raised to think that good things come in small packages, and I thought I was, a cute little kid, but the girl who was one shade smaller than me, Susie, got brutally teased because she would cry. She would get upset. So what parents of sensitive kids need to do is to give them some tools to manage when they're feeling sensitive. Because if they show the bully that they're upset, then they become a standard target. Telling your child, "Don't get upset," doesn't work. But telling your child, "Don't act upset," can work, because we can all practice acting. We from their sitter play, they played, from their, we President's Day, I was Lincoln in the play. They all know that they can take on a persona and a character and play it for short periods of time. So helping children think that I can act differently in those instances, giving them strategies of what they can do is very helpful. The simple act, by the way, of standing next to someone, you decrease your chance of being bullied by 50% if you're not alone.
Wow.
So just going out at recess and playing near the adult or near another group of children decreases the likelihood you're going to be bullied.
Awesome.
And then again, if you have a true story, if your child is going to a school where sports are everything and they're spending all of recess asking someone to play chess with them, this is not going to go well. You might need to go in the backyard and practice throwing a football around and build a skill. Or for girls, you need to build a social skill. You need to build conversational skills. And those are, again, all teachable skills that parents, educators, psychologists, therapists can work with students on. And it can make a huge difference in a student's life.
Awesome. Wow, that's a great message. And I really feel you really know your stuff, Dr. Novik, and it's great to like I feel better about it just talking to you. Don't you feel better, Rabbi Schoenfeld? Like
Yes, yes. I feel like a student again.
I feel like there's hope, you know?
Now I have a chance in the future with Rabbi Garfield. Now I know what to do.
Dr. Novik, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm so happy to hear you have less time with administration, so you have more time with chinuch and helping people, and that's where you need to be.
Yeah, and
So it's
writing
great.
writing books for children and parents. I will eventually write a bullying book, but
That's a quick question on books. Are you familiar with Big Nate?
Big Nate, I don't remember it, no.
It's a very popular comic book, and a lot of these comic books have bullies that lose at the end. The problem is that kids just read it, and the bully is usually so funny, and it's so creative that they miss the message. It's just an
Yeah.
example of a book that
Yeah. There's a Jewish book by a colleague, Benny the Bucket Filler, Sarah the Bucket Filler, that's about this issue from a Mida point of view. My advice to people is just always read the book first. Some of the books I think have horrible. I don't like the Berenstein Bears on bullying. I think it's terrible. Their approach is terrible. There's a wonderful book by, oh, Peggy, I'm forgetting her name, called Say Something, about a young girl's struggle when she's a bystander. It's one of the few books about bystanders, her struggle when she sees something to stand up for
Awesome.
for her friends. So, your children's librarian is your best friend for finding good books, but read them first.
Got it. Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much. All the best, Dr. Novik.
Okay.
My pleasure. Be well.
that was amazing. As I told Dr. Novik, I feel like a Talmud, a student again. It was informative. I think I learned a lot. And as someone who deals with these sensitive topics, I think I'm better for it. I hope we're all better for it. That was quite special.
Yeah, I agree. That was an absolutely wonderful interview, and getting to hear Dr. Novik talk about the different statistics and actual practical things we could do for the bystander, for the bully, for the victim, so important. And of course, the collaboration between family and home. These are all just great topics, great aspects of a really important topic. And really thankful that we had Dr. Novik. And, I'm sure both of us feel we could go ahead with the information and really help people. So that's wonderful. Thank you all again for joining us on the Learning Curve podcast. It's been such an enjoyable thing to record these podcasts, and we really appreciate the feedback we're getting from our listeners. Please feel free to send us an email at thelearningcurve@mishpacha.com. That's 3 words, thelearningcurve@mishpacha.com, where you could share your feedback on these topics, and we could continue to be interactive as we like to be with your great questions that we could address. All right, Ari, Rabbi Schoenfeld, always wonderful. To all of our guests, all the best.